There we are. Evening, everybody.
I'm gonna grab
How
a
we all
drink.
doing? Go for it, man. I will handle the intro while you are getting your drink. I came prepared. Hope everybody is doing wonderful tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. All of it centered on the one singular topic about what is going on with these proposed bass tournament rule changes by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. One of the things I want to bring up first before we get into it, I talked about it in the posts because I'm all about transparency. I've always have been from the very beginning. Yes, thumbnail and title are 100% clickbait. It's something I don't do. I 100% leaned into it on this because I wanted to get this in the view of as many people as possible, because this is by far one of the most important things that we New Hampshire anglers and anglers that enjoy bass tournaments in New Hampshire need to be concerned with. So I took advantage of that, and I do apologize, but at the same time, I am happy with how effective this has been. I think it's the topic more than anything. More importantly, this does not benefit me whatsoever. I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure nothing's come through. Like I'm not gaining followers from this. I'm not gaining any money from it. Nothing's monetized. I'm not including any of my sponsors on this whatsoever. This is just me, Sean Snover, as an angler, sharing my thoughts and concerns with all these proposed rule changes by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, and a lot of the issues that I see with how they are proposing it. The lack of facts that are backing up why it is that they're proposing this. That is the heart of what the issue is tonight that we're going to discuss. The end goal, we're going to talk about it a lot. I want to get this up right up front. This is a call to action. We need people to show up to the public hearing at New Hampshire Fish and Game's Department of Headquarters at 11 Hazen Drive in Concord, New Hampshire, next Thursday, August 21st at 6 p.m. We need people there. We need hundreds of people there. We need as many people as that building will allow, and if there's standing room on the sidewalk, then so be it, because this is important, and not just for what these proposed rules imply, but also the bigger picture of where does this end, which is my biggest concern. We've already lost too much as anglers in this state, and again, visitors of this state. And it's tiring to see, with nobody being able to kind of stand up and call into question the things that are happening. This was kind of the final straw for me for overreach. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to bring as many facts as we can to the table. We're going to leave all the conjecture to the side and just keep it 100% factual. And again, hopefully bring this to as many people's attention and get as many people there at the Fish and Game Headquarters next week. So with that being said, I'm joined by my friend, Sean Graves. Sean, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Good. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing as well as I can be. I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this with me, because you are much more integrated into the tournament scene from every level, and have been for a much longer time than I've been. So you definitely have a much more, I would say, deeper perspective and understanding to the process and anything and everything related to that goes on with bass tournaments in this state.
Sure. Sounds good. So one thing that, before we really get started here, one thing I really don't want this to become is a bashing of New Hampshire Fish and Game.
Correct.
Like, I love New Hampshire Fish and Game. I think for the most part, they are an awesome organization that does a tremendous amount for both anglers and hunters. When I buy my hunting and fishing license, obviously a fishing license is a fishing license, but the hunting license, I buy every possible option, even though I don't pheasant hunt or bear hunt. I still buy those tags to support Fish and Game. That being said, even though I fully support Fish and Game, I don't particularly support these new rule proposals.
That makes two of us. And judging by a lot of the feedback I've seen. That
makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. Judging by the feedback I've seen, the vast majority of people that have seen this and heard about it, they are in agreement. It's a complete disagreement with these rule proposals. So for those that may have missed it, the gist of the proposal is Fish and Game wants to eliminate all bass fishing tournaments on lakes and ponds, bodies of water, that are less than 500 acres in size. And for lakes and ponds over 500 acres in size, they want to limit the total number of tournaments per year to 10 per body of water, with Lake Winnipesaukee being the exception. They have not provided.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, no. So that's close. So you can have a tournament on a body of water based on these new rules under 500 acres, but you cannot have a actual weigh-in on those bodies of water under 500 acres, which there's not a tremendous amount of tournaments on bodies of water under 500 acres in the state to begin with. Right. So
I have. Is this it? Yes. To your point, take a guess. How many tournaments a year on all bodies of water under 500 acres do you think happen in this state?
I'm going to say it was like 45.
Total lakes or total tournaments?
Total tournaments on bodies of water under 500 acres.
So for 2025, and this information comes directly from Fish and Game, Chris Martin, our friend there with the Aluminum Fishing Series, supplied a spreadsheet made from the total permits allocated for 2025. That document was provided by Fish and Game. It was 80 tournaments total on 26 total bodies of water under 500 acres. And that's just for bodies of water that a permit was issued. There is additional bodies of water that permits could have been issued for, but they either weren't requested or that was probably it. They just weren't requested. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that document, and 45 was my best guess. I know, like, I want to say there's only like maybe 2 or 3 that had 10 plus tournaments on them under 500 acres, right? Powder Mill.
Under 500 acres, there was 2. Exactly 2. Hopkinton Lake and Powder Mill Pond.
So Stumpfield and Powder Mill. Yeah.
Yep.
Both which fish bigger than under 500 acres.
Yeah, I 100%. Both those lakes, it's funny. You look at tournaments like up in the lakes region and you think Lake Newfound, which is a big lake. It's over 4,000 acres. It's a big body of water, hold a big tournament, but that place fishes small. You get a place like Powder Mill and Stumpfield, almost 100% of that body of water fishes, which is great. You can. I've been out on Stumpfield. Now I'm going back. One of the first tournaments I did with a bass boat was Bubba Bassin. They did an overnight tournament on Stumpfield, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I remember those. It drew like 33 boats, something like that. It was a hell of a turnout. I kind of miss those days.
Yep. We call those the good old days.
Yeah, truth. You don't see many tournaments that size anymore, which is kind of funny bringing us to this point. Let's talk about the most, I guess, the most important aspect of this. What is driving this rule proposal?
Yeah. So one would hope that the rule proposals were based on scientific and biological reasons behind it.
Yes.
In speaking with the Region 4 warm water biologist, who's in charge of the state warm water fisheries, I point blank asked him day before yesterday, what was the driving factor? Was it biological, or was it, outside pressures from other organizations? And he told me that it was not biological. It was pressures from outside organizations. So that is lake associations, landowners, and parking issues.
So the issue is not
that is directly from the person who wrote the rules that we were discussing,
which is a shame.
Yeah.
If it was a matter
if it was a
matter of they had data to say, okay, we've been tracking mortality rates and they have exploded over the last 5 or 6 years, I can get behind that.
Yeah. If it was an issue with our fisheries, if there was data that said bass fishing tournaments are causing serious harm to our fisheries in the state of New Hampshire, I don't think there'd be a tournament angler who would say, "Oh, well, that's too bad. Let's just keep doing it." In terms of preserving those fisheries for the future generations, that makes a ton of sense. Unfortunately, it's not biological. It has nothing to do with that, for a number of reasons. One, every time you host a tournament in the state of New Hampshire, you have to turn in a tournament report. Those tournament reports ask you how many largemouth, how many smallmouth, what was the weight of the largest smallmouth, largest largemouth, the winning weight, number of fish caught, number of fish that died, any other special notes that you might have in the comments on it. And you send those reports into Fish and Game. Great. Awesome.
Yep.
Fantastic. We need that kind of data. Those reports go to Fish and Game. They are printed out by the lady at Fish and Game, and then they are put in a file folder where they collect dust for the remainder of their life. Those reports are not used for any scientific data collection whatsoever.
That is
and
correct.
Again, that comes directly from our biologist.
Yes. And I went through and I've done a bunch of research over the last collective 6 hours between today and yesterday to try and find if maybe we missed it. Maybe that data is available and publicized by either Fish and Game or some other department of the state of New Hampshire. And it's just either poorly worded or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's archived, whatever, but maybe it just lives somewhere on the internet. It does not. That data has not been publicized by New Hampshire Fish and Game. Say what you want about AI, but it does an amazing job of uncovering anything that has ever been posted on the internet, and you can find your way to it and find that source one way or another if it exists. If it doesn't exist,
I've actually asked that question. Being a tournament guy, I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to know what the winning weights were on different bodies of water that I haven't been to yet. Just so before you get there, you have an idea of, all right, it's going to take this much weight to win at that tournament. And you can call or email and request that information from Fish and Game, and they will send you the documents for those various tournaments. But It's not available. It's public knowledge, but it's not available. Like, you can just go look it up online. You have to request it.
Yeah, it's not publicized.
No, that's my understanding of it anyway.
Yep. So if we look at kind of the whole body of what could potentially be driving this, there is nothing. There is no scientific data whatsoever to back this. As you said, coming straight from the biologist himself, the only reason this is being proposed is because of complaints from lakefront property owners and lake association members. And the complaint is twofold. One, just the people in general using public bodies of water, which is insane that that's a question or a concern. And then parking. So this isn't a bass tournament issue. This is a public access issue. And rather than utilizing the absolutely insane amount of land that we have on many of these bodies of water, not all, I understand that some locations, like, we are tapped for land and you cannot do anything to improve or increase the quality of the access sites that we have. I get that. That's not the case for everything. There's plenty of opportunities in other bodies of water where we could significantly increase and improve the accessibility to these places that benefit not just tournament anglers or just anglers in general, but also pleasure boaters. There is other solutions that could have been discussed prior to going straight to legislative action, just to straight up ban things.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really boils down to, and I guess I'm going to be very pointed with this. And at the end of the day, I'm probably going to lose a friend of mine from Fish and Game. But I've worked with Fish and Game for pretty much almost 20 years. Electroshocking, stream shocking, netting crappie surveys, stalking pheasants. And it really boils down to not wanting to have to deal with the public complaining about something that's part of their job.
which is a shame.
That's, to me, that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
You know, when I go to talk about the public comments, I'm probably going to lose a friend of mine who works at Fish and Game because of, I just disagree with these proposals because I don't believe that they're based on science. I know that they're not based on science. The electro fishing boat has not left Region 4 parking lot the entire summer. And I asked if they'd done any electrofishing when I was there the other day, and nope, they have not. So any scientific data that they could have been collecting to make a decision like this has not happened. In fact, when I had this discussion with the biologist, I asked him, well, how many tournaments do we have on lakes under 500 acres? And he's like, I haven't done that calculation yet. So we're proposing a law to, basically eliminate, I mean, granted it's non-weigh-in tournaments, but basically eliminate tournaments from lakes under 500 acres. But we did not know how many tournaments we had on lakes under 500 acres when you were asked.
Which is alarming because that, unless I'm mistaken, would be part of his job responsibilities, would it not? To be informed on this
Correct.
information and data
Correct.
in general, to make informed decisions that impact thousands of anglers.
Yeah. Can we answer Craig's question here?
Absolutely.
On the comments?
It's a phenomenal point.
So, Craig, only on one occasion do I know of that there was a complaint lodged by, and this happened on Highland Lake. There was a complaint lodged by some landowners right across from Highland Lake. The tournament anglers parked in front of their driveway, and they were asked to move, and they basically told them to go, themselves. And they reported it to Fish and Game, and allegedly, I'm not positive, I know that they were reported to Fish and Game, and their permits were allegedly pulled for the following season. But I agree 100%. Instead of punishing the group of all of the tournament anglers, if there is a complaint, they should follow up with that tournament organization.
Yes, 100%. You don't punish.
I had a tournament on Menominee one time. You want me to keep going?
Yep, go ahead.
I mean, I had a tournament on Menominee. This is like 15 years ago, probably. And I had a confrontation with an elderly lady who came out and told me that I'm not allowed to fish her dock. And I explained to her that it's public water. You don't own the water up to the high water mark. And the biologist at the time, I was the tournament director. He called me and said, hey, we had a complaint. I was like, yep, that was me. And I said, hey, they don't own that water. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I said, I approached her in a friendly manner, and she was, a little bit belligerent, and I responded in kind.
Yep. I've had a couple of run-ins like that myself in the past. And it's a shame. Like there are exceptions to it. And actually, as far as I know, there's only a single exception to that. And that has a lot to do with an agreement with the Lake Association and the boat ramp, Big Island Pond, where the Lake Association owns the ramp and the rights to it, and they control the access to it. And for anglers to be able to fish there and use that body of water, that comes with an agreement that you will not fish the docks. And I think it's actually within 100 feet of the shoreline is also part of it. I could be entirely wrong. I've never fished a tournament there. This is what I remember from other people telling me. That's different, right? Okay, that's an agreement that we have found a compromise that works for the people that live there and own the ramp and the people that want to enjoy the body of water, right? I'm okay with that. I can live with that. But for them to even be attempting to follow up on something that really is a non-issue instead of educating the person that technically was breaking a law, because we do have a sportsman harassment law in New Hampshire? That might not be the exact verbiage, but we do have a law in place for that to protect anglers and hunters alike from being harassed by others and inhibiting their ability to hunt or fish public waterways and public lands. In that case,
yeah, it's I want to say it's RSA 704B, I believe.
Yep.
I've actually looked it up. And when that situation happens, I would say, listen, the New Hampshire public law states that it is illegal to harass or prohibit somebody from the legal pursuit of fishing game.
Yes.
Basically, that's how the law reads.
Right. And I would say it's a little concerning that instead of that phone call going back to the homeowner to educate them on that, the phone call came to you. Find that interesting.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty sure the biologist at the time explained that.
Good.
But, and I get it, I understand both sides of the equation here, right? I mean, we've got homeowners, they've invested in their properties. I ran into a homeowner on Mascoma one time, and we were fishing his dock, and he's like, please be careful. We had a guy here, last week that hooked our boat seat and put a hole in their boat seat with their jig and left their jig on the boat. I mean, and that makes it tough for all of us.
Yes, it does.
When that happens, it makes it very difficult. And again, and not to put a blame on all of society, but society's become where we blame everybody for the actions of few.
Yes. 100%.
Right. I know that there was one of the Facebook comments on New Hampshire Bass Casters website. The guy was like, I don't blame it after I've seen bass fishermen treat fish the way they treat them. And he may have witnessed a weigh-in that might not have been conducted properly. And I don't blame them. I mean, if you're going to conduct a weigh-in, you need to be careful to make sure that you are taking care of our resource. You need to have 2 sinks, one filled with water. The fish should not be out of water for more than, 30 seconds at any given time.
Yep.
That comes from BAS director, Gene. I can't remember his last name. There's a ton of data on, post-mortality, barotrauma. And if you can eliminate those things, weigh-in tournaments do not really hurt the fish population.
No, they don't. I did. That was another thing I did quite a bit of extensive research on earlier today and yesterday. And, interestingly enough, there's no publicized data on mortality rates, both immediate and we'll say post-release within a 72-hour period from, I wrote down, hang on, I want to make sure I get this right. New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. However, studies have been conducted going back to 1995. One was done in Maine. Another was done on Lake Champlain by the Champlain Basin Program. So Vermont and New York, technically, because it's Lake Champlain, so it's on both, even though most of it's Vermont. And then another one done in 2004 in Connecticut on 2 different bodies of water. I kind of built a presentation for this that I'm going to I dump it into a PDF, and anybody wants to see this. It's not just me talking and pulling out numbers. Like, I went and did the research and found all of these studies that are publicized that anybody can read. And I just went and took and summarized everything. So you can go and look at all this. But from these 3 studies, and the most important aspect about this is there are far more studies done on bass mortality from tournaments, immediate mortality and post-release mortality. All over the country. I specifically wanted to see the impact of it up here because our waterways are definitely a little bit different, especially with our overall crazy fluctuating temperatures that we have throughout the season. We have a prolonged period of ramp up and ramp down and decent periods of just ice or pretty hot temperatures. But, those are our peaks and valleys. Otherwise, we're always climbing or always falling for the majority of the year. It's going one way or the other. But from those 3 studies, the average between all 3 of these for immediate mortality was 3 to 4% on largemouth and about 6% on smallmouth. The delayed mortality, the post-release, and all 3 studies did the same thing for 72-hour post-release kind of review what's the word I'm looking for, just study on these. It was about 3% on largemouth and about 4% on smallmouth. That is not to say, I will not say that that's negligible, because it's not, but it's not significant either. And there is a difference between the two. There's a stark difference between the two. What is an acceptable mortality rate? I can tell you right now that every single club in this state, and I would argue anywhere in the country, strives for 0. Almost every angler out there that partakes or participates in tournaments, they strive for 0. We all strive and do everything that we feel we can and is necessary to ensure the health and safety of these fish, because that's our resource for fun, and not just for us, but also for everybody else and future generations to come. So it does not benefit us to mistreat or poorly treat these fish during our tournaments and potentially start killing off too many of these things. But the data we have just from New England states alone, again, Maine, Vermont, New York, Connecticut, it is not a significant number. There can and always should be room for improvement, by all means. And I'm sure there's something that could be done to further reduce that. But even that data doesn't support that we are having this detrimental impact just from bass tournaments.
I agree. And there's been studies, the state of Texas, the state of Georgia, they have multiple studies on, post-mortality for tournaments. And it ranges from, 15 to 20%, depending upon the time of the year, and how those clubs or tournament officials take care of their fish makes a huge impact on post-mortality.
Yep.
And we're a lot different than, some of those southern states in terms of water quality, water temperature, sizes of bodies of water. It's interesting that they have unlimited tournaments on Lake Winnipesaukee, right? There's no limit to the tournaments on Winnipesaukee, but there's 10 tournaments per every other body of water. Fish and Game funded a survey on Squam Lake. I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, and Little Squam. And they did a tagging survey. Dispersal? What's that?
That bass dispersal post-tournament release?
Correct. And so when you catch a bass and you bring it to weigh-in and you release it, you're 300 feet offshore, it only takes a few days, based on the size of the body of water, for that bass to swim back to where you caught it or back to that general area. Some of them stay, some of them don't. But for the most part, those fish return to the same general area where they were caught. And so if you think about a size of a pond that's under 500 acres, those fish have to swim a very short distance compared to Lake Winnipesaukee, where, if you catch one in Lee's Mills and you bring it to Alton Bay, that's, 10 or 15 miles of swimming for that fish to get back to where it was caught.
Yep.
So in terms of stress level on the fish is much higher when you're transporting them in Lake Winnipesaukee than it would be in, say, Kentucket Lake.
Yes, correct. And to your point about that study, so that was started by former Fish and Game biologist Gabe Grease. And that was started in 2014. It was funded by both Bass and Sims, I believe, where there was a couple of sponsorship program partners, whatever the case, to fund this study. And it was, as you said, done on Squam Lake and Little Squam Lake. And the concern was, you pull a permit for Squam, and back then, as long as the bodies of water were connected, people were fishing both. And there was concern, well, what happens to a fish that's caught in Squam and then weighed in and released in Little Squam? Are they even moving back out? What is that dispersal rate? And interesting thing about this is when I went to go find this, because I remember when they did this study, Fish and Game has not publicized this. So they may and very likely do have the information still at headquarters, but it is not available for public viewing online. You probably have to go and request it. However, lucky for us, Bassmaster actually did a write-up on Gabe's work with this movement study. And study began in August of 2014, and an update was provided in October of 2014. So in that 2-month period, there were 33 bass that were tagged, and for reasons not explained, only 23 of those 33 were detectable. So the remaining 10 were, we'll say, kind of, you couldn't count on the data because they were just not detectable. They do know for a fact that
it could be any number of reasons.
Yep. So out of the remaining, there was 23 that were detectable. 20 of the 23 fish all moved out from Little Squam Lake to Squam Lake over the course of a couple of days to a couple of weeks after that release. So that's an 87% dispersal rate. So even the dispersal argument, if you will, if that's a concern, that doesn't hold any water either, based on New Hampshire Fish and Game's own study that they conducted. Kind of coming up dry on valid reasons for this proposal. And I say that as constructively as I can.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
No, you're good. That was it. That was my final parting thought on that.
And again, I have been told point blank that this has nothing to do with biological reasons. It has to do with landowner, lake owner, lake association complaints, parking issues for bass fishing tournaments. And I get it. You want to go fishing at a lake, you roll into the ramp, and you get there early, and everybody's sitting around the tournament, and somebody rolls in with their boat, and they ask you one question. And it's like an obvious question, but they always ask this question. Hey, you guys having a tournament? No, we're just standing here around a bunch of bass boats. Right. But yes, I get that frustration. I do. And all you have to do is check the Fish and Game website, and you can look at it and see where there's tournaments on that particular weekend.
Correct.
And you can go and fish some other bodies of water besides. And I get it. If you're working 5 days a week and you want to go fishing on your favorite body of water on Saturday and there's a tournament there, it's a pain in the butt. I get it. But both people, the tournament angler and the recreational angler or the recreational boater, both have equal access to that body of water. What it really comes down to, instead of punishing one group of water body users, what we really should be focusing on is increasing access to these bodies of water.
Yes.
And again, there's some bodies of water that you don't have a lot of area, but I can tell you right now, if you wanted, that's another, we can get to that in just a second. If you wanted to, I just lost my train of thought after reading his question. If you wanted to have more access, that's where I was going. If a tournament group or organization, for instance, if we have a tournament at a fishing game boat ramp from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we're only allowed to take up 50% of the parking spots. They don't allow you to take more than 50% of the parking spots for your tournament. You have to find another place to park. Okay. So like Spofford Lake, that would include Alton Bay on Winnipesaukee, any New Hampshire fishing game boat ramp. Squam is another one. You can only use 50% of those parking. So there's still 50% of those parking spots available to other people who want to use that facility. It doesn't have a name there, but having a non-weigh-in tournament doesn't change the parking situation in any way, shape, or form. Correct. So, and I asked this the other day. So Highland Lake had, I think, 14 or 15 tournaments on it this summer. And so they want to knock it down to 10 tournaments. Okay, so now you have 10 tournaments on Highland Lake. You can have an unlimited number of non-weigh-in tournaments on Highland Lake. So they could have their 10 tournaments. I could post and create 8 tournaments next summer on Highland Lake and do non-weigh-in tournaments, and the parking lot is still blocked by my tournaments.
Yes, it
does not fix the situation in any way, shape, or form. By using their rationale, if it's a parking issue, that is part of the problem, right? So by having non-weigh-in tournaments, it doesn't change the parking issue at all. it's redundant. It doesn't change.
Yep.
Hi, Dick. How are you, bud?
Dick's a good guy. So
Dick's a great guy. We had a great conversation last night.
Good. So there was that point about the parking, which completely, nullifies that aspect of the argument. So what do they have to stand on? The fact they just don't like us being on the water, that's not a valid reason whatsoever to make these rule proposals. We've already shot down bass mortality being a potential issue. That's been proven not to be the case. Bass dispersal, again, New Hampshire Fish and Game already provided that data. That's not an issue, so there's nothing there to fall back to. Okay, you're worried about parking. Well, you're not eliminating all tournaments. You're just really eliminating weigh-in tournaments on site. Correct. So that doesn't stop catch, picture, release tournaments. It doesn't fix the parking issue. There is nothing. Yeah. There is no valid rational reason behind this rule proposal change.
Well, there is. It's called, there's an old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Then there's that.
And those people that are complaining to Fish and Game, whether it's a rational or valid reason, those people who are doing the complaining are basically are influencing the rule proposals that are going forward. And so, on August 21st at 6 p.m., we need to be that squeaky wheel. We need to have as many people as humanly possible at Fish and Game to make sure that we have our say in what's going forward. A lot of people don't know, but last year, because we're just not in the fly fishing world, have you heard about the fly fishing fiasco?
Yes, and I'm so very thankful you're going to bring this up. And this comes back to what I said at the very beginning that Sean is saying as well. This is the entire purpose of the show is to inform and then call to action. This is the call to action reminder. We need people here. And now Sean's going to touch on the whole fly fishing fiasco that occurred last year and what fly fishing anglers did to make their voices heard and really make things go well for them in the end. So, Sean, please elaborate. Yeah.
So I did not attend the fly fishing meeting, but I have heard from firsthand. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but basically, Fish and Game wanted to change some of the bodies of water from fly fishing only to regular angling, and some of these bodies of water have been fly fishing only for years and years and years. And I get why people say, all right, why do they only get to fly fish there? I understand that argument as well. You get to fish it. If you learn to fly fish, I don't know. I can't really speak to that, but so fly fishermen showed up with between 300 and 400 people at Fish and Game for this meeting, and they basically overwhelmed the Fish and Game committee because they did not do their homework going into making these rule changes. And it didn't go past that night. Those rule changes were reneged. They were put away for a later date, and those rule changes were not put in place because of the public outcry from the fly fishermen that impacted them directly, more so than any other group of anglers. And so hopefully, much like what they did last year, we need to do the exact same thing. If you are a tournament fisherman or fisherwoman in the state of New Hampshire and you don't go to this meeting and support what you believe, then any rule changes that they have, you really can't complain about, because they're going to make those rule changes unless we go and speak our mind and oppose it.
Correct. I need to add to this because it's an important thought that I had earlier that really elaborates on this call to action that we're asking of these people. I implore all tournament directors to reach out to everybody in your club. If you have a friend that is a tournament director that may not have heard about this yet, isn't watching this or hasn't seen it anywhere, reach out to them, make them aware, and have them reach out to everybody else in their club. As many people as we can get, and really hearing from a bunch of tournament directors as well, and utilizing that resource to reach out to even more people is really imperative to our ability to get as many people here to voice our opposition in this. I can promise you, that there are going to be people that are lakefront homeowners and lake association members that are going to be here voicing their opinion in support of these rule proposal changes.
Mhm.
And that comes back to your point about the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we need to be the squeakiest wheel at this. There is a
100%.
parking ride off exit 12 off of 93 in Bow on the Bow Concord line. It is right off of exit 12, very easy. There's a good amount of parking there. So if you all want to start carpooling so you can meet there, there's got to be other parking spaces nearby. If you can all just even think about just trying to get as many people into one vehicle as you can that all intend on going to this as well, so we can make it easier for more people to get into the parking lot to then get into the building there as well. Think about that.
There's hundreds of parking spots in front of the DMV there, which is a short walk to the Fish and Game headquarters.
Perfect.
There's there's many parking spots, tons of parking. There's no issue. You can roll right in, you'll see the sign for Fish and Game headquarters. You take a left or a right, depending upon, I guess, which direction you're coming. We always come from, so it's always a left turn. But you'll see there's a massive parking lot in front of the DMV right there. Yep. And it's a 6 o'clock meeting, so that parking lot will be empty. Plenty of space for parking.
So there's 2 comments, and my friend Katie, I'm sure you must know Katie. She had a good point that I wanted to address because we did talk about it pretty extensively. I think parking is not the conversation for this meeting. Thoughts? It's an organized conversation of why limiting access to lakes through permits. Yes, that is the bulk of what it is we're discussing. One of the other aspects of this we didn't touch upon was their change to the tournament permit process, where they're going from a lottery to a first come, first served basis, which that I can see being problematic as well, especially if it's done hand in hand with limiting the access points to all these places as well. But it's really about limiting the number of permits and what lakes can have a permitted weigh-in tournament at. That is the gist of it.
Yeah.
The parking situation needs to be addressed at some point. That's a fight for another day that I promise you I'm not going to let go, because that conversation, and I don't want to call it a fight because that's not what it should be. It should be a very constructive, collaborative conversation that we all collectively come together, try and find resolution to. That's what it is. It's not a fight. I don't want to call it that. This thing with the proposal, this is kind of a fight. But so there's that.
So when I talk about parking, Katie, that was one of the reasons that the biologists gave for these rules. People were complaining about no place to park their vehicles to use that access point because there was a tournament going on. That's where the parking thing came from. That was directly given to me from the biologist. In terms of the tournament registration, in order the online process. So Massachusetts and Vermont both have an online process, and it is slick. It is fantastic, and it is first come, first serve. And you can do it up to, like, I think it's Mass is like a year in advance. And the way that their program is set up, you can log on to their website. You can choose your body of water. You can choose what date you want to fish, and you can plug it in there, and it will automatically tell you whether or not that venue is available to you. So you don't have to send an application into the state of New Hampshire, because you can start sending them in on October 1. You send your permits in, and then ideally, it's all done by email. They sort through the emails. Sometime in the middle of January, if you're lucky, you get your permits back. And if you don't get a permit, then you have to resubmit another permit, but you can't resubmit your permit till after March 1st. So then after March 1st, then you can resubmit your permit. You could technically submit a permit for Powder Mill Pond on April 22nd, right? That's when you want to have your tournament. So you submit it, it's already taken. So now you say, all right, our club's not going to fish Powder Mill. I'm going to resubmit one on March 1st for Spofford Lake on April 22nd. You submit that, and that one gets denied because there's already a tournament on Spofford Lake. So now you're submitting a form for the third time, which causes Fish and Game a tremendous amount of work to have to keep doing these submitted forms, right? Whereas if you have an online, yes, Jamie, I just saw your text. If you submit an online,
chat, but what did I miss? What did I miss with Jamie?
Oh, he just texted me. So Jamie Dowdy would like to say, make sure you give me some love, buddy. I given you some love, buddy.
I saw he said give him credit, and I'm like, okay, Jamie, him and I are good. I don't remember what he did that I need to give him credit for. And I was like really racking my brain. I'm like, oh my God, what did I forget that Jamie did? So,
well, actually, he's actually really amazing. He is a tremendous resource for conservation in terms of bass fishing in the state of New Hampshire. Tremendous resource. Him and Dick Smith, both phenomenal. They know more about this than you can shake a stick at. I forget, where were we before Jamie interrupted us? Oh, the online permit process. So yes. by doing it the way that we do it, it takes forever to get a permit. Now, Jamie, here's your love. So Jamie went to a national conference of some time. I don't remember all the details, but the state of Michigan came up with an online proposal, and they were willing to give it to every single state for free.
Oh.
And Jamie, if I misspoke, do something in the comments here. So Jamie brought it to Fish and Game, and Fish and Game was like, no, we don't want to deal with that. We're going to do our own process. But we had a free online proposal that they would allow us to use that Michigan came up with. And instead of using that, they didn't want to do it. They basically said, oh, our text can do something like that, but they haven't done it. Is that about correct, Jamie? You want to text us in the comments or text me?
Depends on how fast he can type. Is he old school? Is he just one finger?
He's definitely a two-finger. He's definitely a two-finger pecker, no doubt about it. And so, but I mean, if we streamlined it, it would save a tremendous amount of work for Fish and Game by doing an online process. You know, it's like it's almost like it's a micromanaged thing. Yeah. And I appreciate, at one hand, I appreciate the micromanaging because we have phenomenal fisheries. You know, Massachusetts does not do a very good job at protecting their fisheries. Our fisheries blow the Massachusetts fisheries away. And I'm sorry if you're from Massachusetts, but it's true.
You're not wrong.
And so on one hand, I really appreciate the rules and regulations that we have in place to protect our fisheries. But at the same time, the micromanaging of like these rule proposals is above and beyond what needs to be.
Yep. All right. Understood.
All right,
on
Katie,
that, then.
Katie had a comment about club ID number there. All right. Thank you, Katie.
There was an elaboration to that. What would stop lake associations from just submitting a bunch of paper tournament like applications just to take up like ramp days?
Oh, you certainly could do that. You could 100% do that. You really could. So, Katie, when you submit a tournament application under whatever club that you are, Fish and Game will issue a club ID number. And that club ID number stays with that club for the extension of the amount of permits that club puts in. You know, you could have a club that started in 1970. They're no longer there, but they still have a club ID number if somebody wanted to revive that club, if that makes sense. So the other thing that is coming down the line is tournament fees are going to change. From my understanding from our biologist, is that every single tournament in the future is going to cost $49, regardless of tournament size, per tournament, regardless of tournament size, or whether it's a weigh-in or a non-weigh-in tournament.
Whoa!
And it used to be,
yeah, 50.
So currently right now, if you host a tournament over 15 boats, it's a $49 tournament permit fee. If you host a tournament, club tournament with 15 or less boats, it's a $10 fee.
Okay.
If you host a weigh-in only tournament, it's a $10 fee. If it's an NHIAA tournament, they waive the fee for high school New Hampshire Interscholastic Athletic Association tournaments. They waive that fee. Which is awesome. So it would be a big change going from a $10 tournament, regardless of what, 15 and more, to would be $49 for all tournaments.
I like
that. Wasn't included. I know that Dick Smith had a question that wasn't included in the rule changes that were posted by Fish and Game, but that was told to me by the biologist.
Okay. So
that's a big change.
Yes, it is. That is a very big change. Although I would say not extremely prohibitive. Depending on how many tournaments I guess you're doing inside of the club trail. Like, yeah, it might, maybe some club tournaments that are typically like, we have a lot of like 8 to 10 or maybe even 8 to 12 boat clubs.
Yep.
I would say most of those guys probably do 6 to, we'll say 6-ish on average tournaments for the year. And they might feel that a little bit. But I would say in general, not extremely prohibitive or really detrimental overall. While it always sucks anytime fees go up, period. That I can totally understand from that side of the argument. But at least it's not like $100 per tournament. Like that would really suck. But yeah, I mean it's a change. We're gonna find compromise and middle ground somewhere, and unfortunately, it tends to always be in the wallet, doesn't it?
Yeah. So you mentioned tournament. So that when you were just talking, it reminded me. So there's another piece of the legislation that they're proposing. They're saying that we are aligning ourselves with Maine and what Maine does for their tournaments because we have some interstate bodies of water with Maine, and part of that letter had said that this aligns us with the way that Maine does their tournaments. Well, that's really interesting because they chose the state of Maine to use as an example because it fits their narrative, right? Massachusetts and Vermont, our other two neighbors, don't have those same restrictions that Maine does.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yep. 100%.
So Maine, you're only allowed X number of tournaments on every body of water, but Massachusetts doesn't have that. And Vermont doesn't have that. So they chose Maine because it fits their narrative of only having a certain number of tournaments on a body of water. But they totally left our neighbors to the south and to the west out of it because it didn't fit what they wanted to have.
Of course.
I mean, New Hampshire does have a tremendous amount of bass fishing tournaments compared to Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts. But we also have a tremendous number of bodies of water that are quality fisheries. And so when I said that, the biologist said, well, Maine has a lot of really good bodies of water too, which you cannot refute that fact. Maine's fishing is phenomenal.
Yep.
But instead of taking 2.5 hours to get to Lake Winnipesaukee, you're driving 5 or 6 hours to get to a body of water in Maine.
Correct.
And the Maine population is not what we have in New Hampshire.
No,
so you can't it's apples and oranges. You can't really compare the number of tournaments that Maine has versus the number of tournaments that New Hampshire has.
Right. No, there is far more bodies of water in Maine than New Hampshire. We're just saying something because New Hampshire, 500 and some odd bodies of water that have public access to them. And that's not like trailered boat public access for all of those, but a lot of them. Maine, I'm positive, is like well over 1,000. Granted, a lot of those are on trout fishery, but doesn't matter. That point still stands. There's still a ton of trailer accessible access points in that state and far less people up there because your point is the single most important aspect of that. It's a lot more remote to get out to those places. So yeah, you're right. Apples and oranges. There's there's 2 other comments I really want to get to. And one is really on high school tournaments. I haven't pinned them yet. I got it. But Craig Cushman, a really good one too, as far as the discussion at hand for the public hearing next week at New Hampshire Fish and Game Headquarters. Our proposal to their proposed rule changes should be a demand for working group to help talk through real solutions before Fish and Game proposes something. This is done with hunting and trapping, but not fisheries. I 100% agree with that.
Craig, it's funny that you mentioned that. Because I went to both of our regions' hunting proposal information events that they have. You have all the different biologists come down, and they talk about all the different species that we hunt and trap in the state of New Hampshire. And I brought that forth to Jason. I told him, I said, listen, we really should have and do what hunting does, where we have 3 sections of the state. and you can go, and before these rule changes are proposed, you can then go and have a discussion with the constituents who are purchasing licenses before you go and drop these, bombs on for rule changes ahead of time. Really all they had to do was send a letter to tournament directors, like they did. They sent this letter came to all tournament directors in the state of New Hampshire. And Matt, so if you run a tournament in the state of New Hampshire, whether you're from Massachusetts, Vermont, or Maine, you should still go to this meeting because you are a tournament director and it impacts you doing this. So what they could have done was send a letter out to all the tournament directors. Hey, we are contemplating changing some of our bass fishing rules. We would like to have a group of people get together and, can you talk to us about what you think? And here's what we're thinking. And it would have prevented this entire firestorm from happening,
Yep.
So, I let us off. I love Fish and Game. I think they do a phenomenal job, but when they keep doing this type of thing, like the fly fishing thing, and now these tournament regulations, it just they keep stepping on their own feet, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
In terms of public relations.
Yep. So one other thing I want to get to, it's in line with all this, but not really in line perfectly segues from what we were just talking about, but you would know this better. And I'm not really sure how these proposed rule changes impact this. So Freddie, wicked good guy. Mr. Graves, how is this going to affect the high school tournaments? 10 tournaments per lake per season will affect our high school tournament availability each fall as we get going and add high school events as schools get going. I say the gist of it is, will this, yes or no, impact high school tournaments? And if so, how? Like, are they also subjected to this, or are they exempt from that? Because do you have to pull a tournament for high school events if those are quote unquote kids tournaments? Where do you draw the line with that?
So great question, Freddie. I actually asked that question. So we do our, for those of you who don't know, I coach Keene High School, Monadnock High School, and Hinsdale High School for varsity bass fishing in the state of New Hampshire. And we do our tryout tournaments on Spofford Lake. We do 2 tryout tournaments. And I asked him, I said, so does this, is the NHIA exempt from this? And the answer was, you have up to a year ahead of time to get your permits in. So if there's 10 tournaments on Spofford Lake, before I was able to get my 2 tryout tournaments in, we would not be able to have those tryout tournaments. Much like if we wanted to have our state championship, we rotated around. This year it was supposed to be on Squam, but we missed the permit. So this year it's on Newfound. Okay. But if there were already 10 tournaments on whatever body of water we're trying to have our state championship on, it would get reneged and we'd have to choose a different body of water. So yes, it impacts how many, whether or not we're able to have a tournament based on the number of tournaments that would be on that body of water.
That's extremely disappointing to hear, because you would
think,
and I mean, so they exempt the kids.
I've brought this forth to my neighbor who's on the Fish and Game Commission. I would like to see, and I don't agree with it for all youth events, but for the NHIA, which is our state organization for state, this is a state sport, so to speak. We always go out of Center Harbor. We're not going to lose. That's going to be available to us because it's midweek. That tournament we're always going to be able to have. But much like youth hunting, youth turkey weekend, youth deer weekend, it would be nice if the state would allow the NHIA to have first choice on a body of water for our state championship. It's one day, one tournament out of the entire year. Right.
Yep. And it's not even for that many boats. On average, it's 11 boats for the state championship. 11.
Yeah, between 11 and 13.
13. Yeah, exactly. So it's not like
I think 13 is the most
massive event either. And it's always after the primary season too. It's in October. It's the first weekend of October every year.
It's usually the first Saturday in October.
Yep. So it's not even that
and again, it's not the end of the world if they don't do it. To me, it would okay, we have youth weekend for waterfowl. I mean, not for waterfowl, but for turkey. We have youth weekend for deer. Why couldn't we have a youth, a high school opportunity to have first dibs on a tournament?
Right. I agree with you.
And Freddie, to go back to your point there, finally, for years and years and years, people have, or organized, state organizations have complained about dwindling numbers of license purchases. The number of licenses purchased nationwide has continued to decrease. And then all of a sudden, we're able to start creating high school fishing, which will eventually, hopefully, increase license purchases for our state. And, it's like, okay, that's great. They're excited about it, but now we're going to take it away.
Right. We need to be doing more, not less. We need to be doing more, and we can do more smarter. I tell you, more than anything, with everything we've discussed so far and the vast majority of the feedback, did not expect universal acceptance or I would say support of our discussion at hand, and specifically in opposition to these rule change proposal. But I'm encouraged by just how many people are in support of this. So I'm going to come back to something we've already said many a time, but it's the most important thing about this is the call to action. We need people physically at the New Hampshire Fish and Game Headquarters next week for the public hearing to be able to be there and discuss this civilly, constructively, but very pointedly. Why we are in opposition to this. And there are other aspects that I would like to address in the future, but for now, we are focused on this set of rule changes that they have proposed, and we need to squash it. And I sincerely hope that we have hundreds of you that we will see next week. I know I will be there 100%. I'm going to try and get there a little bit early. Depends on what time I get to work and all that, but I'm going to make accommodations to make sure I'm there because I would like to be in the room for this conversation. Sean, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you're going to want to get, I think if you want to speak at the event, I think you're going to want to be there early.
That's my plan.
That was part of the complaint. That was part of the fly fishing fiasco is that room was completely full. The hallways were completely full and there was a line out the door. You know, if we can do that, this proposal will go by the wayside.
Yes. Hang on. Alec is a really good point. Sorry. Thank you. I do believe it's in the video description. So is there a way to get a petition going in support of being proposed, being against the proposed rule changes? You don't need to. You can send an email. I mean, I suppose we could
there's
go
an email
further, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's an email. I mean, if you've seen the thing on Facebook, Alec, the letter, I'm sure Sean can share that letter. I think you have it, right?
Yes. But what I'm looking for is where they posted where to write the email to, but give me a minute and I'll find it.
It's on the bottom of the first page. There's a spot where you can email, I think his name is John McGee, if I'm not mistaken. You can email him your comments, or it might be info@New Hampshire Fish and Game. I'm not sure what it is, but either way, there's a link on there where you can send an email for your comments revolving around this.
I just put it in the chat, both Facebook and YouTube. Public comments may be submitted now until August 28th at the comments at wildlife.nh.gov. I'll make sure that's there on YouTube and everywhere else. I know I've already put it in some other posts. So if you cannot be physically present, sending an email next is great. Try and see. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything else, and I don't think we did. I think we pretty readily covered this. There's probably another half dozen things that I could say about this, but at this point, I know I would just be beating a dead horse trying to figure out a different way to explain my thoughts on the process. So I'm going to let that dog lie at this point and save the discussion for next week. Sean, I cannot thank you enough for coming on to discuss.
Hopefully I didn't talk too much.
No, man. And there's a lot that I know about this because I love this sport and I really do love this state and fishing in this state, which I get shit for how much time I don't spend fishing in New Hampshire compared to what I used to.
You go to Vermont quite a bit. There's no lie about that. You do have a lot of Vermont pictures coming up.
So I can explain that in 10 seconds. prior to 2020, so I would have been 35 years old. I had all sorts of crazy stomach issues that traveling for me anywhere more than like even a half an hour was a nightmare. Like it was just undoable, and it just couldn't do it. And then I got my health in check, and all of a sudden, like making a 3-hour drive was not bad. So for the last 5 years, I've realized, oh my God, I have yet to see so many different places. So I've just been trying to travel to all these different places that I've dreamed about since I was a kid, in different areas and hearing about growing up. So that's really why I don't spend as much time. I fished in New Hampshire for 30 years, and now I've only got 5 years of fishing out of state. There's been a little bit more Vermont action than I anticipated, and that has to do with a lot of desire to catch an 8, which I do believe is easier in Vermont than New Hampshire, which of course hasn't happened because I suck. And
you just gotta go fish the docks on Winnie.
Yeah, I know. We'll see.
I don't know how they catch
Winnie.
I don't know how they catch them out of Winnipesaukee either. I have yet to figure it out.
I can get smallmouth up there with my eyes closed. You ask me for largemouth? Don't ask me. I don't know anything about largemouth on that lake.
I can't do it.
No.
I try. I haven't figured it out yet.
People always ask me, "Hey man, I'm going up to Winnie. What do I do for largemouth up there?" I'm like, "These mills."
You got me.
Oh,
I got nothing.
No, dude. Smallmouth, though, I got about a dozen different spots, and they always pan out. But anyway, we digress. Is there any parting thoughts, Sean, that you have before we wrap this up?
No. I thank everybody for. I keep getting these text messages now. Rohunta in Massachusetts is the only place to catch an 8. If you've ever fished Lake Rohunta in Massachusetts, you know it's a hole. No, I really want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. And hopefully you can find time on the 21st to go. I plan on bringing my entire high school fishing team, and I told them, hey, if you don't support the rules, that's great. If you think that these rule changes are good, I want you to go there and say that. They need to say their own piece. But I really hope that we can have enough people there so that this does get nixed, because it will literally change the way that we do tournament fishing in the state of New Hampshire for the foreseeable future.
Yep. You know what? There is one point I would like to expand on from your last point, and it's something that I meant to talk about earlier and we didn't touch upon it. There's I did see some comments of, maybe this isn't a bad thing for the overall fishing pressure in the state. And that's an argument that we can have all day long, because I don't see that it is negatively impacting tournaments, specifically having a negative impact. Overall pressure in the state, it's not just the state, it's gone up nationally, especially since COVID. There's a massive influx of new anglers. I literally work for a transducer company. I've seen what the sales look like. I know it from all of the biggest, fishing electronics OEMs. Like, it's insane how many people came and stayed. It's not bass tournaments. It's just fishing in general, boating in general. So, but the big thing is, it's not just about this and the tournaments and the potential ban on tournaments. It's the bigger picture that has me mostly concerned. And, growing up, every elder person, every adult that I've ever looked up to and valued their feedback when it came to talking about things like this, and usually, politically centered, was always, you give an inch, they'll take a mile. And that stuck with me because I've seen it time and time and time again. And that is my concern. If we don't win this, we're not just giving them an inch. We gave them an inch when they gave up access to a couple of different smaller lakes, the access that used to be Fish and Game owned, that they turned over to towns. We gave them an inch when we allowed Lee's Mills to no longer be accessible to the public, which technically the ramp still is, but the parking no longer is. If the state's not stepping up to fight for us, you kind of get where I'm going. It's a different discussion for a different day, but it has to happen. Those are those inches. This isn't just a foot. This is that mile. If we give them this mile, what's next? Where does it stop? Yeah. And maybe I'm over exaggerating. I don't know. I don't want to find out. That's the heart of this. I don't want to find out what's next if this goes through. We have to take a stand at some point. In my opinion, now is that time. I'm thinking bigger. That's what it all comes down to.
Yep.
So that's it. That's all I got until Thursday.
All right. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man, for everybody else that came to listen to us ramble about this. We greatly appreciate it. Again, New Hampshire Fish and Game Headquarters, 11 Hazen Drive in Concord, New Hampshire, 6 p.m. Thursday, August 21st. Try to get there early if you want to be late, and we'll be good. Go ahead.
Can I say one more quick thing?
Yes.
If you have a boat and you're willing to take high school anglers out, please reach out to me. There's always NHIA schools that need boats for our state qualifier. I think last year we had 4 schools that could not attend the state qualifier because they didn't have a boat to go in. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me, and I will put you in touch with the NHIA, and we'll get those kids on boats. Then I'm done.
Yep. All right, man. I will second that. That it's a very rewarding experience, and I highly recommend everybody do it. I'm not coaching this year. I can't. I'm traveling for work the week of the first event. I do believe I will be available on the 4th as a backup boat captain if somebody needs it. I'm trying to keep that in my back pocket because I want to help. I will tell you, it's awesome. It's a phenomenal thing to see and be a part of to help these kids out. They are the future for us. So keep that in mind for those that can do it. We're done. Everybody, thank you very much. We appreciate you all. And we'll see you next week for the next live stream before the public hearing. So everybody have a great night.